Tomorrow, I'm finally kicking off a video series I've been thinking about for a long time, and I couldn't be more hyped. But today, we're gonna break down what's coming in Chapter 5, because based on everything we learned in Chapter 4, a lot of things are already starting to make sense. Plus, we'll talk about the characters we might see in the new chapter. But let's go step by step. We're gonna split everything into two parts, with the big fall after the explosion in the ventilation block as the dividing point. And speaking of the ventilation block, there's only one way to start this breakdown, by talking about that so-called ally. Everything kicked off with Olly straight up confessing that he's not actually an orphan, but instead the most relentless presence lurking around Playtime Factory.
Is this where you are, Poppy?
What?
Stay where you are.
And listen closely. You're not going to run. You're not going to fight. The charade is over.
Who is this?
An obvious question with an obvious answer.
And pretty much right away, we're reminded of that tape. Yeah, the one where Poppy got real honest with Olly, spilling her worries and struggles like she actually trusted him.
Nothing more than what they've already done.
Something's bothering you, Poppy. Something you need to talk about?
I don't need anything tonight. Olly, I just want to sleep.
I think there's more to this. More that you're not telling me.
There's not.
I know what you're doing, Poppy.
Bad men don't say what they want. They don't listen. They don't care how much anything hurts. It's been weeks and weeks of taking things out and putting them back in, and taking things out and putting them back in. Over and over and over. Nothing's ever gotten better, and it'll never get better.
And now we gotta figure out, how's this gonna affect Poppy and us in Chapter 5? First off, let's keep in mind that Olly always seemed like a positive character, someone who was actually helping us. But considering that the events on that tape happened way before the player ever stepped foot back in the factory, it's clear that the prototype's been playing these mind games for a long time. And judging by Poppy's words,
How much do you know?
Everything.
This isn't right. All those years. Was there ever an Olly? No. This entire time, you've lied to me!
Only because you've kept
Missing the point.
it's pretty damn clear now. She was telling him everything about every update to her plan and what was going on with the so-called good monsters. And when you realize that our survival at times straight up depended on Olly, it's honestly terrifying to think what's gonna happen to us without him as an ally. And to top it all off, Poppy ditched us, but not before dropping a major truth bomb about one of the factory's biggest secrets.
always been about you.
And we'll harm you. What we are. That's not a truth that can be burnt away. No. Not when it can mean so much more.
Prototype. Please.
It's time to come home.
Poppy.
It's time to come home.
I can't go back in the case. I can't. I'm sorry.
Y'all remember the ending of Chapter 1, right? The first time we ever saw Poppy, back then it all seemed weird and made zero sense until that conversation. Now, pretty much nobody doubts that the prototype was the one who locked Poppy in that damn case. But why? What does the prototype get out of this? And why is it so crucial for him to make sure the doll stays right where she belongs? More importantly, how's it all actually going to go down in Chapter 5? And what's this escape going to mean for us? And that's where we hit our first big problem. Cause yeah, we can kinda explain Poppy's behavior at this point, but the prototype? His actions seem totally random until we remember that untitled tape, the one packed with crazy valuable info.
So awful. I didn't want... This wasn't what I thought we were gonna leave. Leave the factory. Not this. All those people. Prototype says we can't leave. Not now, not ever. I hate him. I hate him, and I hate this place, and I hate that he's... right. He explained everything, and he's right. We can't leave. It's too risky. What they did to us, we can't ever let it happen to us or anyone ever again. Doesn't make me feel better about the bodies, though. What he was saying about them. I know there's not really another option. The toys will starve otherwise. They'll die. But it's still disgusting. I wish you were here, Dad. I could really use one of your talks right about now. You know what to say. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say. I miss you.
First off, it's clear the prototype isn't just randomly going after Poppy. This all started right after Hour of Joy. Poppy was one of the key figures fighting back against him. Not only does she know a lot about him, but we also officially got confirmation that Elliot Ludwig is her father. And now, the puzzle pieces are finally coming together. We see just how important Poppy is, not just to the story, but to us as an ally. And just like we need her, she needs us. That explosion in the ventilation block? Planned. It was set up specifically to separate us from Kissy. Meanwhile, all those mind games and that emotionally crushing conversation pushed Poppy over the edge. She just couldn't hold it together and ran. That means the prototype successfully pulled off phase 1 of his plan to take us out. And this is why the ending of Chapter 4 changed everything moving forward. So what's next? Well, first off, Kissy's not dead. We literally saw her alive after the explosion. Plus, she survived way worse, though yeah, losing an arm isn't exactly fun. But I'm sure we'll see her again in Chapter 5. Poppy? She'll definitely come back too, but not anytime soon. We're gonna be completely alone for a while. Now, we've already talked about how Chapter 5 is gonna be the finale. Some people agree, some don't, but either way, the first part of Chapter 5 is pure survival. We'll be trying to stay alive and find our allies, and that's a huge problem for the prototype. Even back in Chapter 3, we saw that he won't attack us while we're with someone. It's way easier for him to take us down one by one. Oh, and let's not forget that little piece of our convo with Poppy.
So, if we're going to free them and stop the prototype, we need to plan for both at the same time. The red smoke you redirected from Playcare? It's an accelerant. All it needs is high pressure and a little spark, and it ignites. The plan is this. We'll fill the foundation with smoke and line it with old mining charges. Then once you, me, and Kissy have freed the orphans, our friends here will blow this place sky high. That's our revenge.
And as we figured out, this is literally the only shot we have at getting out of Playtime Factory. So yeah, the first attempt to pull it off failed, but that doesn't mean Poppy just gave up on the idea and crawled back into her case to chill as the prototype's prisoner. But here's where things get way more complicated. The one person who could have helped us, even if he was against it, because he was scared for the defenseless toys that could have gone up in flames along with the prototype, is now dead. And Yeah. That's on us and Poppy. And as for Olly, well, we've already talked about that. So now, on top of just surviving in the labs, which we'll get to in a sec, we gotta find Poppy and Kissy again and somehow pull off the only escape plan we have, all while barely having any allies left. Just the three of us. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. Alright, now let's finally get into the second part of the ending. It's shorter than the first, but way more interesting. First thing we see, the Poppy Garden. And honestly, that feels like the biggest hint yet that Chapter 5 is where we finally uncover every last secret. Right now, we know that the poppy flower has some seriously weird properties, discovered most likely by Elliot Ludwig himself. After that, other scientists, including Harley Sawyer, started experimenting with it. He used poppies as the main ingredient in his creepy resurrection experiments. First on dead rats, then eventually on monsters. And this is exactly what we'll be digging into in Chapter 5, solving the mystery behind the poppy flower and uncovering its true abilities. Hell, we might even end up using it to bring someone back, someone we've already lost. But even that ain't the craziest part, because right past that long-ass pathway, we see the door, the one leading straight to the labs, the place Poppy herself hinted at during our conversation. And once we step inside, we're lucky enough to hear it.
Hi, my name is Leif Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at Playtime Co. If you're seeing this, you must be very, very lost. Well, rest assured, friend, our state-of-the-art laboratory is just up ahead. Why don't you just go on inside and tap one of our scientists on the shoulder? Tell them you're lost. They'll be glad to help. All right. Let's be honest. You're not supposed to be here. This is the single most high-security, high-clearance section of the whole factory. When someone finds you down here, you will be shot. And before you get any ideas, don't think you can just sneak away either. No, the second you put this tape in, it set off an alarm. So if anyone's home, they know exactly where you are. Pretty nifty, huh? Security is very important to us here. If I were you, I'd start running.
And there you have it. The big conclusion that leads us to the obvious. The main location of Chapter 5? The labs, the prototype's home turf. And since these labs are sitting right next to the poppy flowers, it's crystal clear. We're finally gonna uncover the biggest secret of Poppy Playtime. And I think everything here is pretty clear and obvious. But when it comes to the new, or maybe old, characters, things get way more complicated. Though the final outcome is definitely gonna surprise you. I think it's obvious to everyone that the prototype is our ultimate antagonist in Poppy Playtime. And considering everything we've discussed, our encounter with him is now inevitable, especially since they've been hinting at his grand reveal ever since Chapter 2. Come on! And after all this, you still think there could be anything after Chapter 5? To me, that would be complete nonsense, because the entire main storyline can be perfectly wrapped up in Chapter 5. And that's without even getting into Huggy, who definitely didn't return for no reason. Now, we can finally say with confidence, Chapter 5 has to conclude the story of Poppy Playtime, which means it's time to talk about who we might see again. I don't think anyone will be shocked if I say Huggy Wuggy. Alright, we'll get to Huggy and his potentially major role later. But for now, let's talk about everyone else. Drop your own ratings for how likely each character is to return in the comments. But keep in mind, this is the final chapter, and everything will revolve around the prototype. The first so-called victim of the prototype, none other than Mommy Longlegs.
What have you done? You make me part of him! You can't do this to me!
What stood out to me the most were her words about not wanting to be a part of him. Judging by what's left of Mommy, it would be foolish to claim she'll return in Chapter 5 in the classic form we're used to seeing her. But let's not forget that Playtime's labs are home to mind-bending technologies. And now that the prototype is in charge, all their developments are literally in his head. That means, while it's small, there's still a chance that Mommy Longlegs might come back. She could appear as Mommy 2.0 or more likely as part of the prototype's body. But as the original Mommy Longlegs, we definitely won't see her in that form. Still, I'd love to see that pink beauty again. Aside from Mommy, there's another missing piece in the prototype's puzzle, Catnap, the circumstances of his death or maybe his survival, which still haunt me to this day. Take note of how this so-called incident unfolded. At first glance, it seems like the prototype's claw pierced Catnap's head completely. And it looks pretty obvious, but this is mob entertainment we're talking about. They're capable of anything, as we saw with Huggy. But take a closer look. Now, once more, the prototype's claw hits precisely the center of Catnap's mouth. And despite the blood, you can clearly see that no vital organ, specifically the brain or the arteries carrying blood from the neck, has been damaged. This makes it quite possible that Catnap survived, and as a result, his return in Chapter 5 is very likely. I know this might sound crazy, but you remember we're dealing with the prototype and his labs. And if we're talking about Catnap, we can't ignore his complete opposite, Dog Day. This guy was one of the most intriguing characters in Chapter 3, and thanks to him, we learned a lot of new things.
Come to save us. Nothing left to save. Not here. Nor Catnap's home, Angel. Their home. A myriad pairs of eyes are on you now. Watching. Waiting, hungry. They want nothing more than to claw beneath your skin and eat away at you bit by little bit. Fill what feels empty inside themselves. That thing, Catnap. The prototype is his god, and this is what he does to heretics. We try to fight it. The prototype's control. I am the last of the smiling critters.
I think everyone felt a little something in their heart at this moment. But if we put emotions aside and think logically, Dog Day is alive. His body was simply taken over by the mini critters. And if we remember the final scene with him, I didn't notice anything that suggested a fatal outcome for him. We easily escaped from him and shut the door right in his face, interrupting his chase. But he's still alive, and you probably can't argue with that. Unlike Miss Delight, who definitely won't be coming back, at least because we split her body into 2 parts. And honestly, she isn't important to the prototype like Mommy Longlegs. For him to waste time and energy resurrecting her, I'm pretty sure we'll encounter Dog Day again as an episodic monster trying to catch us. But we know that this time, he'll probably meet the same fate as Miss Delight. And since we're talking about smiling critters, it would be a crime not to mention Hoppy Hopscotch, who first appeared to us in Chapter 3.
On 3 with me. 1, 2, 3! Heh, didn't get very far, did we? Again! 1, 2, 3! Nope. Still didn't make it. Listen, this won't stop until we make it to the moon. 1, 2... No! Don't look at your feet! None of that matters! Again! Again! Jump! Jump!
Hey, what really got me hooked was that we don't hear any screams like we do with Bubba or Kickin'. But the devs decided to spice things up and keep us intrigued by showing a little snippet of her life in Safe Haven.
I need some help here! Hey, watch the doors! Watch the doors!
Right here. Lock the engine.
There you go, bud. You're okay. Okay! Look at me! I'm a mess!
Poppy? What's going on?
We were trying to bring supplies back up to the elevator, but we got jumped. Had to turn all the way back around. So, what do we do now?
For starters, you two stay here tonight. Let things settle down outside. I'll find more food for you to bring up to play care. When you're ready.
Thanks, Joey. Sorry we lost the supplies. It won't happen again.
And it seems like nothing, just a small reference to an old character, and I'd agree with you if it wasn't for that damn note on the wall, where we find out that Hoppy disappeared and they can't find her. That's the real reason she's not in Safe Haven, and what's really interesting is that we haven't seen any solid proof of her death. So these references make you think that she might be, let's say, captured by the prototype in those very labs, and the chances of meeting her in Chapter 5 are pretty high. You can't just assume she was killed by Catnap or anyone else, cause no one, except the devs, knows for sure. And if you're curious whether any other smiling critters have a chance of coming back, after you're done with this video, check this one out, cause I dive deep into all the fates of the smiling critters and their chances of returning with all the latest info. As for Chapter 4, honestly, I don't even want to talk about it. Yarnaby is a real idiot, and there's no point in expecting his return. Sawyer already did his part of the deal with the prototype, and honestly, all he probably wanted was to die, which we helped him with. Nightmare critters are just a joke that shouldn't have even existed in the first place, but then there's Pianosaurus. This 30 Seconds hero also wasn't even supposed to show up in Chapter 4, and devs just threw him in as a filler for the gameplay. But lately, a lot of fans have been pushing this theory that there are actually multiple Pianosauruses, and in Chapter 5, we might either see a second one, or, if you believe the whole musical band theory, maybe another member of his group. To me, that sounds like total nonsense, and I don't even want to waste time on it. But hey, let me know what you think in the comments. And if anyone's worried about Kissy Missy, don't be. She's definitely coming back, just like Poppy. But Huggy's return is what's really interesting. Not only is it super symbolic, since everything started with him, it makes sense for everything to end with him, but his role in our survival might actually be huge. So before I wrap this up, let me quickly drop a theory, and if you've got your own takes, hit up the comments. Huggy's gonna be a neutral character whose only goal is survival. He won't fight for our side, even though he's got a close bond with Kissy Missy, and he won't be on the prototype side, even though he started off as its pawn. His appearance is gonna be the key to progressing through the game. Think about it. Poppy escaped, Kissy's badly injured, and if we take into account what Leith Pierre said about the lab, there's no way we survive in there without a third party helping us. So maybe Huggy's gonna be that third party and help us make it to the prototype alive. As I promised, let's finally unravel the mystery of the new character. Y'all remember those weird hats they kept teasing us with before the release of Chapter 4, right? At the time, no one knew what they meant, but later we found out they were tied to Doughy. But here's the thing, there was another leak showing the silhouette of a clown. And let's be real, Doughy ain't no clown. So who exactly were the devs teasing us with? For a while, fan-made channels were hyping up a character called Lulu the Clown. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna be exactly him, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chapter 5 character shares some similarities. And with that, I'm signing off. See ya in the comments.